What's up, everybody? This is Chris Rob Green with another edition of the Car Concierge Show, the show that helps with the buying, selling, maintaining, and repairing of your vehicle. On today's show, of course, we're going to do our Recall Watch segment where we talk about GM as it has several trucks that have a massive recall for its transmission. After that, we're going to check out a quick story about a truck driver that is being charged with homicide after an accident on the highway, as we continue to watch the situation when it comes to our semi-truck drivers. And last but not least, we're going to tackle a story about a car dealership over in Orlando, Florida that has its license revoked, which is a fairly uncommon thing for dealers to happen to dealerships. So we're going to check out that story. All right, so let's jump straight into it. Of course, you know how we love to talk about recalls, and we just want to make sure that we make sure you guys are abreast of all the recalls that are out there, because we know that a lot of people have a lot of different vehicles. So we want to make sure that if your vehicle is ever on the recall list, that we get that information out to you as soon as we can. So let's check this out really quickly. So GM has a massive transmission recall that just came out, and it's dealing with over 460,000 of its vehicles. So let's read this story real quick. This is going to be with Yahoo Autos, and this is from Al Landis, and this is from Wednesday, October 15th, which would be today. Rear wheel lockup shouldn't happen at highway speeds, yet GM's transmission defect makes it exactly that possible. The automaker has recalled 461,839 diesel trucks and SUVs from 2020 to 2022, including Silverado HD, Sierra HD, Tahoe, Suburban, Escalade, and Yukon models. Damn, all they models. For a flaw that can cause catastrophic loss of control. If you own one of these diesels, check your VIN immediately and schedule a dealer visit. This isn't routine maintenance, it's emergency safety intervention. The hidden transmission time bomb. The culprit lurks inside the Allison 10-speed transmission's hydraulic control system. A valve bore wears prematurely, losing pressure that keeps your truck shifting smoothly. When it fails completely, the transmission can suddenly downshift and lock the rear wheels. Imagine your truck becoming an unwilling anchor while pulling a trailer or merging onto I-95. Ooh, that is not a pretty sight. GM and NHTSA have documented 1,888 field reports, 11 accidents, and 3 injuries from this defect. Real owners report near jackknife situations and vehicles stranded with blown transmissions. The risk peaks during high-stress scenarios like touring or highway driving, where sudden rear-wheel lockup could result in loss of control or jackknife incidents. GM's 2-track fix raises questions. GM Solutions spits into 2 tiers that reveal troubling priorities. All affected trucks get software that monitors valve wear and forces their transmission into limp mode if problems develop. Basic system. Basically a digital safety net that prevents lockup by crippling performance. It's pretty common. The real fix involves installing a redesigned Gen 3 valve body with stronger components, but GM only provides this hardware after your truck starts showing symptoms or throws diagnostic codes. Problematic. Supply shortages have left some vehicles stranded at dealerships for weeks, while owners wait for parts that should have been replaced proactively. This reactive approach raises questions about GM's commitment to addressing the root cause versus managing liability. Take action now, don't wait for symptoms. Check your VIN against GM's recall database or NHTSA's lookup tool now. Schedule software update even if your truck feels fine. This monitoring system could prevent a lockup that totals your truck and trailer. If you're experiencing hardships in shuttering or transmission codes, demand the Gen 3 valve body replacement. Demand. Keep detailed records of all dealer interactions and don't accept wait-and-see responses. Contact GM Customer Service with recall number N2424544440 or NHTSA Campaign 24V797. If dealers resist repairs, GM extended a recall coverage to 15 years or 150,000 miles, acknowledging that this defect's serious long-term implications. Your diesel truck was built for demanding work. Make sure its transmission can handle the job without putting lives at risk. Alright, so that is the end of that horrible recall. Wow. Okay, so let's jump into this. This is bad. This is very, very bad. If you own one of these vehicles, and they said the Escalade too, didn't they? 2022 Escalade. Ooh, that is not. I'm gonna have to be looking some stuff up myself. All right, so this is very very bad, guys, and this is one of those recalls that we really talk about. Whereas, you know, like they said, it does seem to be that GM's is extremely aware of this problem, but they're trying to not only save face but to save money because they understand if they went and started off the process of just replacing all of the valve bodies in all of these vehicles, that would be an extremely expensive endeavor. So what did they do? They decided that they're going to start off with the cheap fix, quick software update, boom, bang, bing. This is going to monitor your vehicle. This is going to throw it in limp mode so it doesn't damage itself more than it would, you know, if the problem happened while you were driving the vehicle. But this is not a fix, my friends. This is not a fix. The software update literally is just literally software to let the vehicle tell you if there's any change in the the strength or effects of the valve body. Okay, this is not a fix whatsoever. And the fact of the matter is that even with the software update, you know, this lockup system can still happen. That is pretty evident. That is why even in this article, with this cool dude Al is just saying, hey, forget that. Demand that you have the Gen 3 valve body replacement done because this is one of those recalls or problems that is going to persist forever. And I honestly, you know, even if they do put the Gen 3 in there, there's still the possibility that you could have those problems because the boring is not directly on the valve body. Oh man, this is really a bad recall, guys, and this is one of those recalls that I will automatically say to you that you should jump in your car, and once you establish that it's not, or your vehicle is one of these vehicles in this recall, that you need to drop this off at the dealership. Now, I would hope that the majority of the people who own these kind of vehicles, you know, because they're standardly farm vehicles or definitely work vehicles. So if you own this vehicle, then dollars to donuts, you should have a, you know, hoopty at the house that you can drive around until you can get this thing back. But the fact is that this is probably going to be a situation where if you do have this problem and you do have this recall and you do decide that you want to drop it off at the dealership, it's probably going to be there for a while because it's, you know, the repair itself is not a quick repair. Not only that, you know, there's no knowledge that the dealership is going to have the Gen 3, you know, valve body available to put in your car. It might be a situation where they tell you that you're going to have to wait until they get the Gen 3 valve body in. And that is probably going to be a lot because I suspect that a lot of vehicles, 2020 to 2022, with all of these different models, they're going to be replacing a lot of these valve bodies. So, you know, the valve bodies are of course going to be first come, first serve. First person who gets to the dealership, you know, and with recalls, this is the big thing about recalls. With recalls, what the manufacturer Stanley does is they create whatever the repair is and the parts that are needed for the repair, and they only send out a certain amount of these parts to each dealership because they have a lot of dealerships. So they might send out 10 of these Gen 3 valve body sets to each dealership at first. Think about that. They said over 446,000 vehicles might have this problem. So if you even said that only half of those are getting theirs done, that's 200,000. And then only 10 of the valve bodies are being sent to each dealership. They're going to go through those valve bodies really quickly, and then they're just going to have to wait for another set. And dollars to donuts again, these Gen 3 valve bodies are probably being built in real time. So, you know, once you use up your 10, it's probably going to be a little while before you get another set of 10. So this is one of those recalls that could become a major problem. Of course, they've already said that there's been accidents, lots of reports, already been deaths, if memory serves me correctly. So, you know, 3 injuries, not deaths. 11 accidents and 3 injuries, but no deaths reported. So, you know, it's just one of those things, guys, that, you know, I keep harping on this and I keep saying, and I say it so much, but, you know, 2020 to 2022 is, you know, in that realm of the time that, you know, most automakers had to scale back on their research and development. Now, mind you, this is, you know, one of those things but you would definitely have to have put the vehicles on the road for quite, some extended period of time. Some extended amount of mileage would have to be put on these vehicles for them to even establish this problem. That's why these are 2020 to 2022 model problems, but this is 2025. You see, they didn't really establish that they had these problems until these people driven their vehicles for a little bit of time, a couple of years, and then that's when they established these problems. And most automakers, most places don't spend any excessive amount of time doing research and development. Definitely not a couple of years doing research and development on these vehicles. So they're not going to see these problems when they come off the lot. They're not going to see these problems in their standard, 6-month research and development and testing period that they do on these vehicles. They're not going to establish these kind of problems. These kind of problems are only going to be established when somebody buys a vehicle and drives it for a couple years. And that's a big problem, but it is what it is. Recalls are not going away, and they're going to continue. But the only way to fight against recalls is to up our research and development. Same story, guys. Same story we always talk about. All right, so next up we're going to check out a story about a crash that killed 8 people, and the young gentleman that was the driver is being charged with homicide. I wonder why.
8 members of the same family were killed in that fiery wreck on I-85 yesterday.
The tragic crash happened in Jackson County Monday. Fox 5's Denise Dillon is live at the news desk. Denise, you've been able to find out more about what happened.
Yeah, that family that included adults and children were in their van when it was hit by a tractor trailer. The van burst into flames, and tonight a family is grieving, and that driver is in jail.
It's definitely the worst that I have seen in my years of doing this. So.
A devastating chain reaction crash Monday afternoon involving 6 vehicles on I-85 in Jackson County. The Georgia State Patrol initially said 7 people in one van were killed. Later, an 8th body was discovered.
Once we were able to move the vehicle that all the victims was in, we were at that point in time able to locate the 8th victim in the vehicle.
Inside that van, 5 children, the youngest around 2, and 3 adults, one of whom may have been pregnant.
The family has indicated to me that one of the victims was pregnant.
State troopers say the family's van burst into flames when it was rear-ended by a tractor trailer. The driver of that truck, 33-year-old Kane Hammock of Gainesville. He's in the Jackson County Jail charged with 8 counts of homicide by vehicle, 1 count of feticide by vehicle, along with some other traffic violations. Deputy Coroner Jeff Rogers spent the day meeting with family members.
This is very tough for them, for the loss.
I wonder if they're going to explain to us why he was charged with this, and it wasn't just a simple horrible accident on our roads. Because of course, horrible accidents do happen, but they obviously found some reason to charge this man. So I hope they tell us why.
And you're talking about an entire family. We're working as quickly as we can to get them released back to their families so that they can have closure.
The National Transportation Safety Board, in coordination with the Georgia State Patrol, has opened a safety investigation into the fatal crash. At the live desk, Denise Dillon, Fox 5 News.
Wow, just so tragic.
Yes.
Denise, thanks.
Well, I mean, all right, so they didn't really give us a lot to work with. We just prayers up for the family and the loss of the children and everything like that. We kind of didn't give us enough really to go off of. For me, I really want to understand why he was charged with the homicide. Was it reckless driving? They said that there was some charges, so obviously he did something that they could establish that it wasn't an accident on his part, and what he did was to some degree bad. And I really wanted to establish if he was drinking, if he had did some drugs, if his driver's license was expired. I was kind of, because we've been talking a lot more a lot about illegal immigrants having semi-truck driving CDLs, and the accidents that happen because of that, or the lack of ability to drive correctly on our highways because they can't read the signs, or all of those stories came about when that one gentleman who didn't really speak English tried to do the U-turn on the highway, and the people rammed into them, and the 3 people died. And we've had a lot of stories about that ever since that happened. More about illegal immigrants, how they're gaining CDLs, and how many are on the highways, and how they can't read the signs, and how this all causing kinds of problems. So that is what basically we've been really talking about, but that is not the case here. So I'm really going to spend some time trying to establish that why he was charged with the homicide, because that for me is what's going to be really important in this story. Because if there's any idea that he did something, and if he didn't do something that could have prevented this accident to happen, and all those people losing their lives, that's what I would want to find out. I did, they said that he rammed into the back of them. I'm assuming because in the pictures or in the video, it's weird, because in the video, what you see on fire is in front of the truck. So obviously, and what I gathered from that was that the vehicle that the people were in caught on fire, and the truck didn't, because if it was a truck that they were showing in the video, that was a gas truck. So gas truck, they make the steel on them a lot harder, so it doesn't explode and whatnot. But with that kind of massive fire, then I would expect that there would have been some degree of problem with it being a gas truck. But it's they really didn't give us a lot to go on, but prayers up for that family, to loss of children, and the poor young lady that was pregnant at the time. It's all horrible things, and you just have to be safe on these highways. You have to watch your truck drivers. I don't want to get into no idea of final destination, or avoiding semis and all that type of thing. Mind you, I am at an age where I would not drive behind a semi truck. Definitely not a semi truck that's carrying lumber or no dumb junk like that. But matter of fact, I'd never stay behind semi trucks in any form of fashion. When I'm on a highway, I'll speed past their ass every time. It's just it's the final destination in me that I would not do that. But you just it's we come to the point we understand that there's many reasons that our highways and roads are not safe, specifically when it comes to some semi-truck situations. This situation here, semi-truck drivers who really shouldn't be on our highways driving these vehicles. So just as best as you can, be as safe as you can. All right, last but not least, we're gonna check out a car dealership that has been doing some dirty business to the point where it has lost its license. Let's check that story out.
A local car dealership Action 9 has been reporting on for the past 2 years has now had its license revoked.
Yeah, the Benji Auto Sales locations in Orlando and in South Florida are both now closed. Action 9 consumer investigator Jeff Deal has been looking into this, and he's continuing to get complaints about this car company.
Well, the initial complaints we received is that the dealership wasn't paying off the trade-in loan balances within 10 days as required by law. Now we're hearing from a woman who claims she paid for a car in full back in May, and Benji Auto Sales still hasn't sent her the title.
When we stopped at Benji Auto Sales earlier this year.
Jeff Deal with Channel 9. We received a consumer complaint about you guys not paying off the trade-in loan.
We wanted answers for consumers claimed the dealership wasn't paying off their trade-in balances within 10 business days as required on.
Now, why is that important, guys? We understand that they have to, dealerships, when you trade your vehicle off. They have to pay off the trade-in value because, of course, if they do not pay off the trade-in value, what's going to happen? It's going to still be under your name, and you're still going to end up having to, after whatever, 30 days or whatever, you're going to have another payment. Let's keep it going.
Under Florida law, Gordon Hartz first complained about it in 2023.
It's untenable to me, and I don't understand how somebody can go to work, know that they are doing this to people, and live with themselves.
He was stuck making payments on 2 cars until Benji finally paid it off when we started asking about it.
Oh, they're very crooked, taking advantage of people.
Now we're hearing from Sarah Anderson in North Carolina, who paid for this Kia Forte online from Benji Auto Sales in May. She said it arrived with dents all over it and claims it has other problems.
The left sensor doesn't work on the tire, so the lane departure warning doesn't work, and the check engine's light on.
To make matters worse, even though she paid for it in full, she claims she still hasn't received the title and hasn't been able to register it or drive it in North Carolina. The Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles let us know it has revoked the dealership license for Benji Auto Sales because of ongoing problems with late title transfers. The dealership in Orlando and one in South Florida are both now shut down. Several automotive publications reported in June the owners of Benji Auto Sales bought their first franchise dealership, a Nissan dealership in Victoria, Texas. We reached out to Nissan of Victoria and Nissan's corporate office to ask if consumers in Texas should be concerned after the state of Florida took action against Benji Auto Sales here.
Avoid it at all costs.
And mind you, it's crazy because, you know, them purchasing into Nissan is going to give them backing by Nissan. So, you know, you hope that in itself will allow, you know, Benji Auto Sales to be a better dealership because, you know, Nissan, if you become, you know, a franchisee or whatnot of a dealer or an automaker like Nissan or anything like that, they're going to have a lot of stipulations for you. There's going to be several stipulations about how the upkeep of the building, how your service department is ran, how your sales department is ran, how you pay off bills, how you pay off, you know, trade-ins. All these things are going to be by Nissan's book. So the minute that Benji doesn't do it by Nissan's book, it's going to be curtains for them. They're going to lose a lot of money if they lose that one.
Don't make the same mistake that I did. Listen to the reviews online. Read them.
The state of Florida has received 24 complaints about Benji Auto Sales in the past year.
Damn.
Nissan wouldn't comment on Benji Auto Sales, but when it comes to its Texas dealership, it said it expects its dealerships to follow the terms of their dealership agreement and all applicable local and state laws. In Orlando, Jeff Deal, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
All right, so, you know, it's par for the course. You're going to find bad business people all over the
A common
place.
habit that you may be doing while you're...
And it's just one of those things that you just can't control. And it's the individuality of certain dealerships. You know, you're dealing with certain personalities. You're dealing with certain people. And some people are just unscrupulous. You know, some people just have no tact. They're going to do whatever they want to do. They're going to take their time doing things because... You know, the biggest thing is that they weren't paying off, you know, the trade-ins in 10 days like they're supposed to. Why? Not paying off because they got to pay that money. That's money coming out of their pockets. They ain't ready to pay that money. They probably got it, probably had it, you know, from, you know, you purchasing your vehicle. Matter of fact, Dollars and Donuts, they didn't have it directly, you know, but they had it to the point where they could have paid it off, but they just didn't want to. And it's just like any other person who has a bill but has the money, they just don't want to pay it because they don't want to see that money leave their account. And you know, eventually, of course, you find that they eventually did pay it. With some situations they were forced to pay it, but they understand that, you know, technically, you know, that bill is still under your name. Now, mind you, you purchased this vehicle, you signed all this paperwork, giving it over to them, but unless they paid it off, it's on you. And they know that's on you. And they suspect it. And Dollars and Donuts, I bet in several cases that they did this to people. And what those people did was they end up just paying that other car off and not even knowing it. You know how automated payments are nowadays. people who make a certain amount of money, live a certain way, they're not even going to see certain amounts of money coming out of their account because, the transfer of money is so fast and lucrative, to the point where you could sit there and have 2 car payments and not really even notice it, because you just picked up a new car, so you notice certain amounts of money coming out of your account. If you had an old car payment that was like what, additional $200 a month, maybe $300 a month, you're probably not even going to see that, because you're going to be under the mind frame that the money coming out is for your new car and not for your new car and the old car that you had before. And that's why this is a major problem, and that's why they had to investigate these people, and that's why their license was revoked, because they was taking advantage of people. And also with the young lady who bought her car online, and I am a guy who sells cars online from time to time, and I've come to realize that when you sell cars online, you almost have to make sure that the car is in as much of perfect condition as you can. And if there is any problems whatsoever, you have to make sure that person that you sold that car to knows about those problems, and you made some decision that if you are going to fix those problems, or if the person that you're selling the car is going to eat those problems or take care of those problems when they pick up the vehicle. But you have to be fully transparent with that vehicle if you're selling it online, because if you're selling it online, it's not a situation where people have the ability to touch it, feel it, rub it, drive it, all those type of things. And that in itself is a hard problem for people who sell cars online. It really is. If people don't have the ability to look at the cars, to drive the cars, to really find out how the cars smell, how fast they go, all these things are extremely important when you're buying a car. And if you're buying a car online, sight unseen, this is stuff that you're not going to get. So it's extremely hard to sell cars online. Now, do I do it? Yes. But I make sure when I sell cars online, what I standardly try to do, and it's not always possible, but what I try to do is, if the person not near me or local to me, then I will send their ass to a dealership around them and try to, what I would do first. First, what I would do is I would find the car that you want near you. Because it's just easier for me. If I can find the car that you want near you, I can get a hold of a salesman near you that has the car that you want, and I can, buffer a deal for you to buy this car. That's the best way to do it, because that way you can go in, you can tear up the car, touch it, rub it, feel it, save it, you know what I mean? And you'll really get a feel of what kind of car you want. Now, if you don't have that ability, then what I would do is, if there's not a car around you that I can get you to buy, but there's a specific car that you want to buy, I will find that kind of car around you that you can't buy, and I will have you go check it out. And I don't care who's selling it. I will have you go check that car out, because it is important for me that the car that you're driving you enjoy. And if you buy a car from me online, you get it and you don't enjoy it, that's bad for me. So I would send you to another place that has that car. If they're not going to deal with me or whatnot, it doesn't matter, because I want you to check out the cars before you get into them. And with her, and this is true, specifically true of like Carvana. I deal with Carvana a lot. They have this weird insurance company, Silver Rock, but Carvana, of course, you buy your car online, they shipping it to you and everything like that. But almost every time there's problems with these Carvana cars when the customer gets it. And they're minor things, most cases. Mini Cooper the other day, so a little bit of roof damage, probably was done on the delivery from wherever it was to the person whose car it was. Things like that. I had a situation where person bought a Carvana car online and the tires was bald. They didn't tell the person that the tires was bald. They didn't, tell the person the tread depth of, how much time was left on the tires. These are all things that you would notice if you saw the car, prior to you purchasing it. But we're starting to get into a world where everything's online, and we knew that eventually car buying would go online as well. Home buying will probably go online a lot here in the near future as well. And we just have to understand that, you know, and I say this all the time, if you're doing this type of thing, you're buying a car online, buying a home online, anything, you have to do die-hard research. You have to do die-hard research. And part of that die-hard research, specifically when you're buying a car, is finding a car like the car that you want and trying to drive it. Trying to check it out. Trying to touch it, feel it. Save it. Busta Rhymes. Alright guys, I'm going to let y'all go and get up out of here. It was a pleasure as always. Please hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Hit me in the DMs if you have any questions. We talking about cars all day long. Throwing a little politics every blue moon. And if you like it, I like it. If you love it, I love it. So tune in. Alright guys, I'm out of here. Peace.